following is a presentation of
Thermopolis
Media. This is the Captain's Jug of Thoughts podcast. Recorded at the Ontario House. The Stone Jug. The Stone Jug.
Okay, all right, everybody, welcome to the Captain's Jug of Thoughts. We are in the back of the Ontario House, the Stone Jug, a historical building. We're with the captain.
How's everybody doing out there tonight?
And today we've got a very special guest. We want to introduce our guest, Captain. Let the captain take over.
Yeah, this is Mr. Pete Costello, one of the infamous owners of our fine establishment down here in Youngstown, New York.
And resident historian.
Absolutely.
I like that.
If you want to know anything about Youngstown or the Stone Jug or Fort Niagara or Fort George or anything like that, this is your man.
Yeah, I'd say that's about right.
Yeah. He's got a lot of information for us tonight. We're going to do a little history lesson here and, have a couple laughs and see where it goes.
Yeah, on the first one, we discussed a little bit of kind of, I guess, what we know as far as some of the history about it. Your brother explained a little bit, but you know your shit. If there was ever a dude who knew his business, it's you.
Yeah,
the
that
details
is my business, is knowing my business.
Yeah.
So I guess, man, I don't know. It's corny as it is. Where does it all begin?
Well,
we want to talk the Jug.
Yeah,
we want to talk Youngstown. We want to talk.
Yeah, we can just dive right in. I mean, if we want to go with Youngstown, we can go all the way back. This is the second French settlement in North America. I mean, we'll just start with right when the Europeans got here. You have your, the French got here. The first settlement here was 1679.
What was the first one?
The first one was called Fort Denonville.
That sucks.
Yeah.
That's a terrible name.
Yeah, and then Fort Conti shortly after that. And
it's a little better.
It's definitely better.
Those forts were, just wooden forts out in the middle of absolutely nowhere. The way I always like to illustrate it, and really the first time I saw it kind of, struck me as it really kind of encapsulated everything that it was about, was that opening scene of The Revenant.
Yeah.
Just imagine that. Like, this was at one point like the most important French fur trading outpost. So that's literally what they were doing. And The Revenant kind of put like a really, really visual,
realistic
model what it was like. I mean, you were out here, and there was Indians that had no idea what was going on, and they just really didn't like it. and at any point, that second they're sitting around the fire and they look up and they see those arrows going over their head, they're just like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
So
what is going on?
So the first French expedition that came through here, they were coming through Montreal, which was the capital of New France, and it was their the first settlement the French had in North America. And LaSalle, who is super famous. I mean, how many things around here are named after LaSalle?
Yeah.
He made his voyage through here, and they recognized the spot that is Fort Niagara now as pretty much the ideal place to build a fort. So they left a garrison of 100 men there.
Yeah.
When the reinforcements of those 100 guys came back in the spring, there was 12 left of them.
Oh, wow.
Anywhere from, freezing to death, starving to death.
Yeah, some
being
crazy
killed
disease.
by an Indian attack.
Yeah.
Crazy disease.
Yeah.
Wiped out 88% of them. I mean.
And for them.
That's crazy.
Back then, they're probably like, that's not bad. It's good numbers.
Yeah. Well, actually,
we still got a few guys.
It was still an extremely harrowing sight to come in and see those guys. And especially the ones that survived were probably no pretty sight to see.
No.
So you even see that bronze cross that's at Fort Niagara now. That's a model of a cross that the French Jesuit minister that was with the reinforcement expedition, Father Millet. It's called the Father Millet cross. He ordered that to be constructed out of wood, and in 1923, President Calvin Coolidge signed off on an order to recreate that cross with the bronze cross you see today there. And at one point, that was the smallest national park ever operated by the National Park Service.
Oh, the fort was?
No, just that cross.
Oh.
You know, inside
the cross.
inside of the active military base, and at that time the old fort was, you know, kind of a coming into its own as a museum.
Yeah.
But they designated that just that cross in there. It's 0.00023 acres, and it was designated as a national park,
Wow.
a national monument. So that was the smallest national park ever operated by the National Park Service.
Just the little cross. Wow.
Just a little cross there. So next time
That's
you're out
amazing.
there, you'll see it and be like, holy shit.
There it is.
That's the one, huh?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go
That's
check
what
that
we
out.
were talking about. Yeah,
The
absolutely.
fort is great, and it's beautiful, and there's history. You learn it's a museum, and there's commercials for it where there's little kids like playing with toy muskets and stuff. But then you got, you learn all this, and you're like, there's some pretty gnarly stuff that went down here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember playing with those muskets when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, 2 full-fledged wars were fought in the grounds of the fort there. I mean, the French occupied it from 1679, like we said before, all the way up until 1763. And actually, it was really 1759. And in 1759, the French and British fought the French and Indian War, from 1756 to 1763. And in that time, the siege of the fort, the British laid a 19-day siege on the French at Fort Niagara, and ended up winning that battle. Like the famous battle that happened right here in Youngstown, pretty much where the Jug sits now, is where the ambush took place for the French reinforcements that were coming from what's now St. Louis and Toledo. The French forces came up to reinforce the garrison that was at the fort, and they got ambushed by the British and chased all the way back up to above the falls now. And they got back up there. They sailed 3 boats here, and they only had enough to sail 2 of them home. Wow. So they pulled one of them off on Grand Island and set it on fire. The spot we know as Burn Ship Creek now.
Burn Ship Creek.
For that reason.
How about that? That was a real problem solver back in the day. They used to just burn everything.
Well, it was either that or let the British have it, and fuck those guys.
And that was not happening.
So, that was the battle that was really decisive in the North American theater of what's known as the French-American War, or the French and Indian War in North America, and the 7 Years' War in Europe. It was actually kind of the First World War, because there was another theater. Like they were raging a war with England and Prussia and France and Spain and all their allies on the mainland. And then
but that's significant turning points of those wars happened here.
Well, yeah, and it happened here. This was the big spot, and that is what cost the French their foothold in North America, and they were kind of cast out of North America until they got back in when they bought what was the Louisiana Purchase from the Spanish, and then flipped it to Thomas Jefferson.
That's why that's what chased the French out. This could have taken over.
That's what chased the French out. And really, when you think about French Canada and Montreal and all that, that could have been here. That was the end of French rule, even in Montreal, and they've held on to their French customs since then, which is actually rather impressive.
It really is impressive when you think about it. I mean,
yeah. So they switched over to the British in 1763,
right,
and they just stayed with it. We're still going to speak French.
We're gonna keep the spot right here.
Yeah, we're good. We're not going to go mess with you guys anymore. You guys are nuts.
Well, not even that. I mean, the French government was out of there entirely, but the people that were there were just like, no, we're going to keep speaking French.
Yeah, we're French.
Yeah.
You're English subjects. Well, that's all well and good, but we're going to keep speaking French. And, if you have a problem with that, as the French will say, fuck you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that like a point of pride?
Pardon my French, but...
That's where that came from.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we're learning today. That's where that came from.
When I was down in Florida, this guy in front of me is driving me nuts. I'm like, look at this fucking guy. I'm like, what the fuck is he doing? Like, he just can't drive, So he ends up pulling into the freaking parking lot, of course, that I have to go to. And I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. And then I look down and I'm like, Quebec? Really?
All the way here?
I thought I was done with this. So sure enough, not only do they speak French, they can't drive either.
No.
They can't speak English and they can't drive.
And they wear Speedos generally.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, down there.
Especially down there.
You always run into
In the
Quebec.
supermarket.
Yeah. Quebecers.
It's a little disturbing when you're looking for bananas.
So go.
You found one.
So really, they'll wear Speedos and just walk around. There's not a law against that. There's not.
I don't think they really
That close
wear
to
them in the
They
supermarket.
they don't do the Catholic school skirt length
that's why there's
pass your hands rule in the supermarket.
Well, some French guy thought that you could do that and horribly drove himself down there.
Right.
Because he's like, this is home.
This is it. Yeah. This is where I belong.
Finally, freedom.
Vive la resistance.
He just takes his pants off at a supermarket, at a Publix. He's walking around a Publix.
Exactly.
In a Speedo and gets his ass kicked.
I believe that's known as Publix nudity.
Got arrested for Publix nudity.
Yep. Perfect.
So
anyway, the French are booted out, and the British take over 1763 officially, and they build up some things in the front or in the fort. Both the redoubts, north and south redoubt there, which are those little towers on either side of the and the gate that has the drawbridge and everything, and the British keep it up, and through the Revolutionary War, not really too much happens here.
So what was
the British kind of teamed up with the natives here, the Senecas and the Shawnee and all, and a couple of really famous Indian chiefs find their way through both in the Revolutionary War and the War of 1812. The Native American history in this area is very prominent as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But
so what was the town like at that time?
Well, this was the frontier, and even through the War of 1812, this is still the frontier. There's really not much out here. So after the Revolutionary War, the British are officially, cast to the other side of the Niagara River, and nobody really makes them leave.
So what they just
so
hang out?
1783 they signed the treaty ending the Revolutionary War.
Does.
And they're just like, if nobody's gonna make us leave, what are we just gonna go over there and build a new thing? We have this one, we like it. No one's gonna make us leave. We're probably just gonna end up with it anyway. So they stay.
Right.
And the U.S. doesn't really do anything. They stay both here, Fort Detroit, Fort Mackinac, a bunch of the other forts on the border, which they're ordered to the other side of the Great Lakes and the Niagara River and all that. Specifically in the Treaty of Paris that ends the Revolutionary War, but nobody makes them leave. So they stay until they sign another treaty in 1796. So 13 years, nobody makes them leave, so they just stay.
Just hanging out, yeah.
So they finally make them leave, and then New York is like, okay, well, those guys are gone. We can actually set up a little bit of commerce, a little bit of settlement around Fort Niagara. So around that time, 3 Scottish innkeepers move into town and build 3 bars and inns in the town.
Right.
Angus Greensit is the other one over by where the gazebo is, by the pizza shop over there.
Yep.
Elijah Hathaway in our little spot right here. It's a little wooden inn and bar, whatever you want to call it.
Elijah Hathaway was the original
Jug, was the Hathaway Tavern.
The Hathaway Tavern.
So, that exists for a little while, and then the War of 1812 rolls along. The Americans take over the fort, and the British build their fort right across the river called Fort George. And they build it just out of range of all the cannons of the fort and slightly uphill. So they can fire their cannons into the parade ground of the fort, and the Americans can't really do too much to them.
It's so funny, like where war technology has come in war to where drone strikes, and then think back like, well, if we get up on the hill, they can't do anything.
Huge advantage.
And like whole civilizations are changed forever because
they're still firing
because of slightly higher ground.
Slightly higher ground, and
we'd always speak in French right now. They're all for that hill.
They're all still firing smoothbore muskets, which are famously inaccurate, and it gets to a point where they are able to, feel like they have the higher ground. Across the way at the time, Niagara on the Lake was called Newark. It's the capital of Upper Canada because, again, this is a really important spot. This is where you would start your ascent over the falls and then hook up with, the upper Niagara River, which will take you to Lake Erie, which will take you to the Ohio River, which will take you to the Mississippi, which will take you to the Gulf of Mexico and out that way. Or it'll take you to the Missouri River to west, and you can get anywhere. And this was the confluence of all those places. This is like kind of the linchpin of what was the French Empire now.
Anything that's on like a waterway where a passageway, like a water passageway, was really a big deal back in the day because that's how you had to get around.
Yeah, and that was pretty much it. This was that, and it still is. I mean, this is where all the Great Lakes waters eventually flow right by us here and out to Lake Ontario and eventually to the St. Lawrence and out to the ocean. Yeah. And, it all goes over Niagara Falls, and there's only one way over the falls, and that is by land. So there was the portage, and, you can still go down Portage Road, and that's essentially where the road was. Military Road was literally a military road that would take you up to the portage, and the portage would get you up and over it everywhere.
All right.
So, but in the War of 1812, we were finally there. We're finally, we're going to decide what, whether or not America's sovereignty actually matters. And this is actually where the really decisive battles of that war happened. And looking across, there was Newark, and it was important. It was small. It was there, but the Americans there knew that they had to do something about it, so they went over at one night and burned everything in Newark.
Burned once again. Yeah. That's how they handled business back then.
That's how you handle business.
Just light there's on fire.
The famous story of what is essentially the Jug on the other side of the river at the Angel Inn.
The Angel Inn,
where the Americans went across and burn the building down, but before they did, they went downstairs and stuck all the barrels just to make sure everything was destroyed. And hiding in one of the barrels was apparently the British soldier that still haunts the Angel Inn over on the other side. A nice little shout out to our friends over on the other side at the Angel.
There we go.
And they still have that story, and it's kind of a wacky story. They even say that every time they take the Union Jack down, that ghost freaks out.
Oh, yeah?
And that's why they still fly the Union Jack outside, because every time they try to take it down, that ghost kind of freaks out and makes his presence known. So they just leave it up to appease him.
What the hell do you think you're doing?
He's been kind of a dick for the last 200 years.
It's all I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was a rival bar on the other side of the river.
Yeah, it's something like that.
It's kind of
it's another town. It's got to have another bar.
Well, it's like the other summer.
Shit, man. I mean, I'm not going across the fucking river to get a drink.
It's like a summer camp, and that's the cabin on the other side of the lake.
Essentially, we go panty raid the girls' cabin,
Yeah, but back then it was let's go stab a guy in a barrel and
let's go stab a guy in a barrel and burn it down. But that was to get the tactical advantage.
Yeah.
But it really pissed the British off really bad.
Oh yeah.
So they came over.
Mess with their booze, man.
They came over on a cold December night, right around Christmas time.
Now, did they just walk across?
Yeah, they took boats across over by where like Stella Niagara is now, and a couple. Because
back in the day, you could actually walk across.
Yeah, they say that the river would freeze over that much. I mean, there was no power plant. There was no other.
And was it smaller back in the day because erosion, whatever, making the river wider?
Probably not.
I totally just made that up and was hoping it would be true.
Yeah, I mean, you're only talking about a couple hundred years. So.
No, but they came across and kind of caught all these sentries sleeping at the fort and just kind of walked in and took it over. And the story is that there was a bunch of American soldiers playing cards in this bar here, the Hathaway Tavern as it was then.
Sure.
And the British soldiers bust in the doors and see the Americans playing cards. They hold up their musket and said, "Trump." we got the Trump card and essentially just killed everybody in the bar and burned it down. Right. And burned everything down from here to Buffalo and Silver Creek and
a bunch of pyros.
So that's where.
Oh well, that was vengeance. That was that was vengeance. Still. They were really pissed at that time. Buffalo was a bunch of log cabins.
So that was the beginning of
super burnable log cabins.
Much. That was the beginning of
they got you never trump your partner's ace.
Right.
There we go. I
That's
don't
correct.
play euchre very often, but I know that one. I know that rule.
I know Bob Euchre.
And now
Bob euchre.
yeah.
Just a
And
bit
now we've come
outside.
full circle,
about to-
and we have President Trump.
Now we have President Trump. So that always carries a different connotation. If I tell that story to a,
So
you know,
you're-
a virulent lefty, they're gonna, you know, start frothing in the mouth. No,
Yeah.
no, not that Trump. You know, like in
No,
cards, when you
we're
say
just playing
Trump,
cards.
yeah,
Calm down, calm down.
Yeah.
So there's a big event that had happened here at this bar. So
Yeah.
it's the Hathaway Tavern.
So the Hathaway Tavern up until 1814, when it gets burned down by the British,
Of course it does.
and we know that they
They must have a real lot
you
of
know,
matches back then.
Well,
you know, Elijah Hathaway appears on what's called the list of sufferers. After the war, they petitioned the government for some sort of, you know, reimbursement for their property that was destroyed, and that's 1817. And really, from 1817 until 1842, we really don't know what happened here.
Really?
You know, there could have been something here, or maybe not. Maybe it was just still a big smoldering pile of ashes.
Right.
But we don't really know.
Wow.
But we know in 1842, a man named Alexander Lane buys the property and erects the stone 40 by 40 building that we know now.
Yeah, that's what we said on the first one was, you know, make it stone. They can't burn it down.
They
There
can't
seems to
burn
be
it
a,
down.
a
That's
habit
right.
of everybody burning everything
Well,
down.
there's also a little bit of historical background with that too. So in about 1820, they build another little project that a lot of people have heard of, the Erie Canal.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
And you know, after they dig the Erie Canal, they have just mountains of stone everywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and you go to Lockport, you go everywhere in between here and Lockport. You know, things that are built from 1820 until 1840. Just about everything's made out of stone, and that's because there was a whole hell of a lot of it lying around.
I'll say that we did our bathroom a couple years ago and had a lot of wood. Everything is made out of that now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Picture frames, chicken coops, everything I've made has been out of the wood we pulled out of that bathroom.
No, you know.
So I get it.
You know, in a very small scale. So this is one of the biggest public works projects, especially considering, you know, the scale for the time.
Yeah.
You know, the Erie Canal really was like engineering marvel at the time. Then they pull all this stone out of the ground, and, you know, there's stone for days and days and days. And then again, in 1837 and 1838, they rebuild the seawall that Fort Niagara has around it, you know, preventing it from falling into Lake Ontario.
Right.
And, you know, that kind of supplies, you know, the canal supplied the stone, and the seawall project really supplied the masons. You know, you have a bunch of masons that have been here stacking rocks for a couple of years, and they're really, really good at it by this point.
Yeah.
You know? So they built this building, the stone building that we know, they built it in a year.
Wow.
Especially with a really intricate chimney system in it, and the, you know, windows and door, and, you know, everything is done really, really well, and they did it in a year, which is also pretty remarkable considering.
Because they were hot at that time. They'd been doing it. They were hitting it.
Yeah, you know, they were really good at stacking stones at that point. So they had it down. They were able to do it. You know, even with the chimney work and everything, it's really remarkable to consider. They built the building in a year. So, you know, the building opens up and, you know, runs and changes hands a bunch of times over the next...
Do we know what it was called then?
Oh, it was called the Ontario House.
Oh, okay.
And actually, that's where the name came from as well. I mean, a lot of people don't really know where the name came from, but officially, the name came from, if you look at the profile of the side of the building, it kind of looks like a big stone jug.
Yeah, okay.
You know, with a parapet that goes up.
Is that what the logo is kind of? I don't know.
Well, that's where the name came from,
Yeah.
and the logo is just pretty descriptive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
You know,
sure
it's
is.
a jug that says stone on it, so you get stone jug just pretty
You
quickly.
kind of get the idea.
Yeah, it just makes sense.
I'm thinking rock bottle.
Rock bottle.
Rock bottle.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Rock Bottle Inn.
The Rock Bottle Inn. But, you know, that's the AKA. It was always the Ontario House, and it kind of earned the name Stone Jug because it was, you know, an old stagecoach hotel. This is, you know, different stops on the line. You know,
So
if
the
you're getting
name-
somewhere, a big stagecoach rumbling into town, you're coming up and you see the side of the building. It's like, hey, it looks like a jug. But at that point, there was 40 rooms that were rentable in it. Well,
Wow.
actually, you're kind of getting up into 1866 when they built that wooden addition where the pool table and
Yeah.
you know all the rest of the
Right.
All of that was like-
you know, where the kitchen and all the other stuff there. So in 1866, you're dealing with 40 rentable rooms. which is crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
To think about what it would take to get 40 rentable rooms in there, on top of all the other space that they used. And
Right now we have 4.
Yeah, right now we have 4. So 10 times as much.
Right.
You had enough room for a bed, a table, and a chair with a wash basin.
Right.
That was it.
It just looked like a big pile of people all
that's
living
all.
on
That's
top
all
of
you
each
wanted.
other.
You just wanted somewhere to lay your head for the night. They boasted some of the best stables in town. You see all the advertisements from pre 1900, and they always talk about the stables, and the stables were top of the line with the finest of hays.
Yeah.
The finest of hays for your steed.
Which is why it was so easy for us to make all the plaster here because of all the extra horsehair.
Yeah, if you like.
So the whole building is just made out of stuff we found on the ground.
Pretty much.
Pretty much.
Just picking
And
things up.
really the best buildings are.
Yeah. I mean, unburnable.
Yeah.
Well, so they say. So far, so good on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there was also across the street where, the old Yellow Goose was from 1892 to 1936 or so. There's the El Dorado Hotel, which was also a 40-room hotel. It was the first building with plumbing and electricity in it, built in Youngstown.
Nice.
And that motherfucker burned down in the 30s. So, maybe they should have thought about a little bit of unburnability.
Tradition.
Yeah. What was that one built out of?
Oh, it was built out of all sorts of stuff, but it was mostly wood.
Mostly wood.
It was built out of
There's
a bunch
your mistake right
bunch
there.
of empties.
Yeah.
Bunch of old cereal boxes. Well, they should have, when they did the plumbing, they should have put a couple hoses in, huh?
I guess
Yeah.
so.
So the name did this. So you call it's the Ontario House, and then the name Stone Jug really just came about from
Yeah,
travelers.
it's a nickname that I earned. I don't know if it was necessarily, I don't know if
we don't
Alexander
know,
Lane
yeah.
comes up on the building. It's like, fuck, man, that looks like a jug. Let's call it the Jug.
Let's call it the Jug.
Yeah, I think it was more of a
It
thing.
does have a nice ring to
It's another one of those things. It's all it's all legend. There's no formal story. There was no official history of the Jug because
No real documentation.
Yeah, there's no documentation for a lot of it, especially that little time period in between. We have no idea. There could have been all sorts of cool stuff going on here, but we just don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We know.
I'm
we
sure
know,
there was
we
cool
know what
stuff.
we do know, and the things we do know are sufficient for what we got.
Right.
And they tell us enough of a story to know that it changed hands a couple times between Alexander Lane. Fort Niagara was a real kind of happening spot for the U.S. Army throughout the whole time. I mean, from 1679, as we said, all the way up until 1963. It was almost for the entire time. It was a couple times it was declared as surplus by the Army. But for the rest of the time, it was an operational fort that had a garrison, had up until the 60s, this town had commercial fisheries. It had, 7 barber shops and 7 bars and a bunch of laundry places, and it had to support 1,000 troops up until 1963.
Yeah. So
the fort had a 1,000-yard rifle range. It had, up in the 60s, it was the command center for 6 different Nike missile sites in the area.
Wow.
Just in case the Soviets got pretty brave and wanted to attack Western New York.
yeah.
It has a really colorful history, and up until 1963, it was a top-notch military post. In the 30s, it saw a huge renaissance and a huge golden age when the 28th Infantry was here, and they had a marching band for the time that was a big time attraction. They would do a concert on Sundays, and people would take the train and the bus and drive down from Niagara Falls and come and check out and have a picnic and listen to the 28th Infantry band play. Youngstown was a burgeoning place. It was a lot of fun. The steamers left from Lewiston and would take you to Toronto, Montreal, and off to Europe. And it was a wild place. But after 1963, the base closed down, and Youngstown kind of faded off, and it kind of dropped down to this little tiny, quaint little town we know. the parkway was put in. So if you wanted to go check out the historic site, you just kind of jumped on the parkway and then jump back on the parkway.
Yeah, you pass by the town.
Good old Robert Moses.
Yeah, it's easy to bypass us here because like if you're going to see the park, you don't even think about Youngstown, and frankly, barely think about Lewiston either. And it's one of those things where we're kind of just a little bit of an afterthought.
We're stepping stones to get to something else. I think a lot of people come into Lewiston to go to our park. They just drive down Center Street, go to our park, and then drive back. You know what I mean?
Certainly.
Unless they're stuck in traffic, maybe they'll look around a little bit, but it seems to empty out pretty quickly.
Yeah, we've had a few different revelations here where there's some big events going on at Fort Niagara, and we'll pump it up. And we'll be like, oh yeah, we'll even put a little sign up in the fort and direct people here, and maybe they'll find their way. And we've been saying, like, it doesn't matter if it's the soccer tournament or the reenactments. We tell people we're here, and they end up kind of just getting on the parkway and getting back on the parkway and bypass the village altogether.
We had
go check out Denny's up on the boulevard.
On Sunday, we had a dozen people come in here for lunch that I'd never seen before, and I kind of was like, half and half, adults and children. So I kind of assumed that they were with the soccer tournament because we had a very large soccer tournament this weekend, and so yeah, you guys here with the soccer tournament? And they're like, no, we're in town for a wedding. I'm like, still nobody from the soccer tournament. Yeah, they don't even know we're here.
I remember growing up, I worked at the pizza shop, and again connected to the gas station there, and soccer tournament weekend would come by, and they would just descend on us and just beat the shit out of us because we were at the gas station. They come in and grab a slice of pizza or this and that, but all the other places in town, every now and then they get a bunch of people come in. You get 50 people come in at one time, and that's like your rush for the day. But it's just one of those things that they were going to the gas station because they need to get gas.
Convenient.
But beyond that, I mean, it's just like people don't necessarily know to go through the village because it's just so easy to get on the parkway and get back on the parkway on the way out.
The main attraction in the town. You don't have to go through the town to get to it.
Yeah. In fact, I mean, it's really encouraged. Hey, this parkway will take you from the state park of Niagara Falls, which is a wonder of the world, to Fort Niagara, which is the second most visited tourist destination in Western New York. But we rarely get much benefit from that because it's so easy just to get dropped off right at the attraction there.
Sure. So it's been a sleepy little town since the 60s.
It's been a sleepy little town since the 60s, and frankly, before the 60s, they closed the base pretty much the same year they opened the parkway. And before that, the only way to get to Fort Niagara was going down Center Street in Lewiston, then going down River Road. So at one point, this was a real busy little thoroughfare.
Yeah.
All the people that were going to the fort were definitely going right by our little spot here.
Yeah, and then it all changed.
One
little parkway.
Yeah.
Damn Bobby Moses.
And frankly, the parkway was also was built with a lot of the fill that they pulled out of the dam that they dug the power plant at Niagara Falls as well.
All right.
So all those road beds were all built with all the shot rock and fill they pulled out of the what is now the dam and reservoir up in on top of the hill there.
That's pretty cool. They're recycling. I like that.
Yeah. Well, it's you got to put it somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the Captain's Jug of Thoughts podcast.
New York Beer Project is New York's destination brewery, right? You can come by and experience 20-something craft beers, all brewed right here in-house. We've got food, we've got patios, we got tiki bars and drinks, we've got events, all of it lined up just for you guys. Come on down any day of the week. There's something going on. Mondays is half-price growlers. Tuesdays, we've got some trivia. Wednesdays is a great day just to begin with. Thursdays, I don't remember what we have. And Fridays, there's always bands in the brewery. Come down. It's going to be an awesome time. I'll make sure of it.
This is the Captain's Jug of Thoughts podcast.
All right, where did we leave off? What year were we? Somewhere in the 60s.
The 60s.
Gotta love the 60s.
You know, some people just never left them.
No, there's a few of them around here.
So, well, we were talking before about that one period of time where we really don't know what happened at the Jug.
Yeah.
Maybe the 60s is kind of like that too. There's a few years that are mysterious there.
Now there's a few that time definitely left behind.
All right, so we were a military town, hustling and bustling. Fort
Bustling.
shut down. Well, it didn't shut down, but stopped being active and started transitioning into more of a historical landmark.
Museum, so to speak.
Yeah. The 2.4 feet
that
of
officially
historical.
happened. I mean, there was a time in the 1870s where there was still soldiers that were stationed at the fort, and they would have to stay in the old barracks in the actual honest God French castle.
Okay.
And by that point, like, that is like getting the worst assignment in the entirety of the army.
Right.
You're staying in this old ass building. It's cold in the fucking winter. It's hot as fuck in the summer.
Yeah.
And they eventually built some buildings outside of the walls of the old fort, and you're modernizing the post, and got a little bit better.
Didn't the Castrinos live in one of those buildings?
Well, yeah, up until the Castrinos lived in the lighthouse, the lighthouse keeper's house.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. That lighthouse, I can't remember
Yeah,
when
like-
the lighthouse was built. I think the lighthouse was built in the 1840s as well.
And someone lives there, right?
Well, there's still people that live there, yeah.
Yeah. So it's this big historical, it's a national. It looks like any historical place in America. Big ass parking lot full of Dongbu tour buses and all this shit. But as you're walking up, there's like somebody's house.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
got the big lighthouse on it. Like part of this historical thing, one of the buildings is modernized because it's got like a trampoline in the yard. You're like, this is doesn't seem accurate to the time.
Well, I remember I was on the same bus as the Castrinos, and we would have to go in. We'd have to go in the fort and drop them off. And there's still that big bump there going into the fort, and that was like our thing. This is like we're about to go over the bump. We're all like getting all fucking worked up and like, all right, and then you go over the bump, and everybody just like jumps over their seats and it goes nuts.
Oh yeah, sure. So who owned the bar? Kept going as
The bar kept going. I mean, from 1842 all the way up until we know it today. The bar changed hands a whole bunch of times until you got to 1934 when you had the Wojiks that took over. And even then, that was in the middle of Prohibition. So the bar wasn't really going at that time, and it changed hands a couple more times. The Berge family, who we know today, the Sharps,
okay.
Dave Sharp and Justin and Andy Sharp and on Bobby Sharp, and that's their ancestors.
Their ancestors owned this at one
they
point?
owned it. They owned it for a
Yeah.
couple years in there, and then they sold it back to the Wojiks, and then Prohibition broke. And during that time is actually when the stone porch that we know today was put on.
Yeah.
Before that it was a wooden porch, and the front door that leads out onto the porch now was one of the main entryways in. But that was all big wraparound porch that went around.
There's still actually a giant wooden door in the basement that's now covered up by a bunch of shit, but that you used to be able to go out the front to, where the electrical boxes and stuff are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you get out onto the road from the basement there.
Right.
But that all changed when they put the big stone porch on there.
And that's a huge
And one of the things
part of the
that
place.
did is they wanted to funnel everything on into what we know now as the bar, and that was the Wojiks that did that. They were Polish immigrants that came over, worked hard, bought the place, and then ran it for 80 plus years. I mean, Ad Wojcik is a bit of an institution in this town because he took over when his grandfather retired in the 70s, and Ad was the natural person to take it over.
Yep.
You have Rennie, who just passed away. God bless her. She was 92 or.
I think 94.
94, just a really wacky woman that, everybody has a story about Rennie.
Everybody
has a story about Martin. we're sitting.
Remy and Martin.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
Well, that was their daughter was Rennie, and their father was Martin, and Martin was a larger than life figure in here. You talk to the old timers that come in. They all have a story about playing either cards or shuffleboard with Martin.
Absolutely.
Every single one of them.
Every single one.
I remember
Don't get
coming
a
in.
discount because I used to hang out with Martin.
That's the name drop.
Like he died like when I was born.
Yeah. I think he died in '79. I think Ed officially took over in '76. But he took over full scale in '79. Did a lot of upgrades. Did some upgrades upstairs. He and his wife ran the bed and breakfast as a real place for a few years. Did great. And then the '90s took over, and '92 was a big year. That was 150 years for the place, and that was a big year for them. And they did a ton of work. A lot of it we still know today. Painted the ceiling red and green as you know it today.
That's nice.
Enclosed that upper room. Before it was kind of all open. You have that continuous banister that goes down from the bottom. That was brought over in 1842. That banister goes all the way to the top, and that's mahogany wood that had to come from Indonesia.
Yeah.
So that came over.
It's beautiful.
That's
Still to this day.
incredible. I mean, it's this incredible thing when you really think about what it took to get that here from
Right.
Indonesia. That came in.
Yeah,
That
seriously.
came on a boat.
What that thing has seen.
Oh, yeah.
That banister has seen more than we
Lots
have.
of hands.
Yeah.
There's still upstairs in the in the common area, well, what we would refer to as the common area, where when people stay here, that's where they have their breakfast and stuff like that. There's still a cutout from the newspaper from 1992 with the Wojaks thanking everyone, for all their help, and there's a lot of names on there that you still recognize today. A lot of families and stuff like that that are still around. The people still come here and stuff like that. So.
Yeah,
Well,
so
it-
you're talking 1934 all the way up until 2015 when my father bought the building from Ed, and my father did a lot of work with Ed on the building. This was his home base. He moved down here incidentally in 1979 as well, and this kind of became his spot.
Well, thank God it did, because that was a big thing. Was you got to have somebody who is from here. You got to have somebody who's got their heart in it.
That was always the thing
Right.
rolling up to it. I mean, it was always uncertainty whenever you come in here. I always kind of liken it to the Buffalo Bills. Every time the Bills took the field, I mean, that could really be the last time you ever see the Bills, because when Ralph Wilson dies, what's going to happen to the team? I mean, they could go, they could stay, the Bills have been around a fraction of the amount of time that the Jug has been, and it's this huge part of our little community here. I mean, it's always been a thing,
Dude,
and
it is the
you
community.
never knew what was going to happen to this place, and it was always one of those things that the uncertainty would always kind of, hover over it. I mean, the men's room sitting in the bar room before, it was this, kind of oppressive stench that would waft out of there anytime anybody would open the door on a hot summer day.
Oh, as soon as it hit 80 around here,
It was-
No.
it was.
Well, there were certain
it was
times
risky.
if you're taking a piss at the urinal, there was certain times where it'd be raining on your head.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, what were they going to do? Because at that time, the uncertainty was kind of, surrounding them as well. They weren't really sure if they were going to keep the place, if they were just going to sell it to the highest bidder. The biggest fear was always, some, big shot from Toronto would come in and buy it and turn it into a, frou-frou wine bar that,
Right.
you can't come in here and get your beer and play a game of shuffleboard at happy hour.
That would have
And
changed the whole dynamic of the town. That would have been like when they close a factory down and the whole place goes nuts.
Certainly, I mean,
Right.
what do we do with our happy hour guys?
Yeah. What
where
they do?
Where are they going to
Yeah.
go?
Right.
that
No
was always-
shuffleboard
and
and,
that,
no
that-
cheap beer.
Yeah, that uncertainty always surrounded the place, and my father stepped in and bought the place because he really and truly cared about it.
Yeah, to
And,
save it, yeah.
And you look back on the Wojak time, and it's everybody kind of looks back on it as this almost fairy tale kind of time period where people
Right.
are just like, oh yeah, when back in the day when Ed was here,
Oh,
it was
yeah.
just this blah 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 blah. It was like this wonderful place, and it was just this magical bar that everybody was just so cool. It's like, well, that's very true, but
Right.
at the same time, I mean, we came in and made the improvements that needed to be made, and we expanded the kitchen out, and got some bathrooms that are
You brought it
close
with
to
you.
the bar and habitable.
You had to modernize it. You had to bring it through time with you. As everything grows, you got to help it grow with you. You don't just leave it there. Yeah.
And before, the Wojiks, they brought it through
A lot.
a whole hell of a lot. That's pre-World War II. The base was still open. They brought it through. They rented the rooms, they did the whole thing, and it was a really, really wonderful time for the Jug. It serviced all the people that grew up here. You hear all the people that graduated from high school. I can't tell you how many people have come up to me and said, "Oh, when I had my 18th birthday," because the drinking age was 18 at the time. I can't tell you how many people would come up and say, "Oh, either to Martin or to Ed, my 18th birthday is today." 18. You've
been coming here for
years. Get the fuck out of here. And they got kicked out that
night. They get thrown out on their 18th birthday.
Get thrown out on their 18th birthday because they admitted that they were drinking here underage all those years.
Right.
And I can't tell you how many times I've heard that story, but it's always kind of a trip to hear it.
It's always a trip to hear it.
These days, it's like, hey, let's see your ID. I don't know who the hell you are.
I don't know. Yeah, I've never seen it.
Especially
before.
21's easier to peg.
Yeah.
Before you had all the this is a farming town. You have all the farmers coming in here at 16. They're probably all big old corn-fed Western New Yorker
exactly.
boys.
They're twice the size of your average 16-year-old. He's got to be 18.
And how much do they even care back then, anyway?
I've had a lot of people. Speaking of the new bathrooms, I've had a lot of girls come in lately, or ladies come in lately that. They walk straight to the back because the old ladies' room used to be in the back of the building.
Yeah.
And they walk straight to the back, and then they come back out to the bar, and they're like, "Excuse me, do you have a ladies' room?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
Well,
it's over here now.
That's where it should be.
The thing I find most unacceptable is when they get all wistful about it. Oh, but it was so great when the lady. No, it wasn't. What are you, crazy?
Yeah.
You had to go back and pee under the goddamn stairs.
We talked about that. It's just you
like
got to go
little,
through like two dark rooms to get to a big dark room.
One of which wasn't insulated in the wintertime, and you had to walk and stand out there and hope that there wasn't somebody, doing something bad in the bathroom back there.
Right.
You go in there and it's sweltering hot because
you never know what's going to happen.
Pumping into the bathroom down there.
Yeah, it would be really shocking. It'd be like 50 in that back room, and then it'd be 88 in the ladies' room, and you'd be like, "Oh."
Hey,
a body's not supposed to do that.
Right.
Go through that dramatic of a change.
Yeah. And it was one of those things. But when people get all wistful about the bathrooms in the old place, I just tell them, "Fuck, man, I know you're visiting, but like." It's better now.
Yeah,
it's definitely better now.
The bathroom situation is better now.
Oh,
I think everybody gets wistful about the past. We're all just naturally like that. You think back and you're like, "Oh, it was so great." Like everybody thinks back to high school.
Those were the days.
Yeah, they start listening to "Glory Days" by Bruce Springsteen and thinking about how great it was.
Yeah.
But when you're in high school, you're like, "This sucks. I can't wait till it's over." You know what I mean? You always look back. There's something about that. So I don't know. Wistful, you want to remember the times. There's good times, but we're still having good times. And now the bathrooms are in the right place.
Exactly.
And now the bathrooms are a pleasant place.
Because you can't smell your memories.
Yeah.
Right.
Memory is the strongest
school.
sense tied to memory. And I'll never forget the smell of this place on an August afternoon when some guy just laid off a fucking stinky one in the goddamn...
The worst Yankee Candle.
I remember getting off work sometimes and knowing that I was coming here and just praying that there was less than 10 people here so I could get a stool at the opposite end of the bar from the bathroom.
Well, because if you got a stool on the wrong side of the bar, you'd smell it.
You noticed. Until you were good and drunk.
And I'm not talking about a bar stool either.
No.
Did you have that one dude who was like Pigpen from the Peanuts who just didn't mind and he always just sat in that chair?
Oh, yeah. There was always that guy.
Yeah.
I mean, for most of us, if you had a number 2 on your schedule, that was the end of the night. I'm gonna go home.
Oh, you just dropped the grenade.
Come on,
and
man,
leave?
we just got here. This is so fun. And he's like,
But I gotta go.
I gotta go, and I'm not going in there. because I have respect for the rest of the people that are trying to have a good time.
With the exception of good old Robert.
Well, Robert had no shame.
Robert definitely had no shame.
And you know what?
That guy shit in that bathroom probably more than anyone did in the previous 40 years.
Much to the dismay of that too, because usually the toilet wouldn't flush, and it would just be like,
yeah, it would be
just
horrible.
a bowl of Robert in there.
Yeah, a big bowl of Robert.
And then frankly, when he would sit down next to you at the, it would be, very present.
I used to, because we've got the giant fan at the end of the bar that kind of keeps some airflow going for everyone on nice hot days. And he would sit in front of the fan every once in a while, and I would make him move.
Yeah. And, well, this stink would blow right down the bar.
I would be like, "Oh God!"
You're filtering
before I even
nice
saw
air.
him. I knew he was there.
Yeah, there was a couple times where the wood of the stool would capture his essence.
Oh no.
Yeah.
And we'd spray it down with bleach because that's the only thing that could possibly combat it.
Maybe that's why they kept burning everything back in the day.
Yeah,
It's
well,
just some dude
there was
would-
some stink going on back then, that's for sure.
Some guy would drop.
You go to
heat
those
in there.
reenactors and they're all wearing fucking wool in the middle
Yeah.
of the middle of winter. Well, it was in style. You had to look good.
Sweaty wool knickers, and some guy drops heat, and they're like, "This building's ruined. Just burn it."
Yeah, fuck it.
I was kind of wondering, this past weekend, or this past week, with it being the 4th of July and all, they had all the reenactors down at the fort, which you and I saw when we came in from our little fishing excursion.
Yeah.
And I was kind of wondering how many people passed out, because it was rather hot.
It was rather hot. Well, we saw a bunch of them taking their little sink showers in there before the day started. So.
Yeah.
Oh, they go-
slapping the water up to the armpits and
They go authentic.
That's not gonna help, bud.
no.
No.
All that's doing is
Yeah.
making you a little bit cooler and damp. It's not taking away the smell.
It's
You stink.
just stoking the fire again.
Well, what
That's
water?
gonna steam some stink out again.
Are they getting water from a well? Like, are they going straight authentic?
No, nothing's authentic.
No,
when
it's
you
a
really
pull
get
and
down to
spring bottle they're pouring over their head. That doesn't count.
it. Yeah,
You need real nasty water.
yeah, they're heating up a can of beefaroni over the fire and really
nice.
get the fucking stink going.
You need water that's some Indian poisoned if you want to be authentic.
Slap that on.
So, yeah, now you guys have it, and we're bringing it into a new era. That's what I said on the first show. Like, this is the
Yeah,
forest.
well, we accepted the first credit card in here in 2015.
Yeah. The fact that when you guys
You
got
know,
Wi-Fi.
Incidentally, the first day we opened up, there was a Thursday night Bills game on. It was the night we actually opened up, and we took our first credit card on a night where the Bills were playing a Thursday night game. So that should really kind of date it all pretty well.
That should be in the book of all these historical moments. That's definitely one of them.
Yeah.
That's definitely the one guy taking a shit, and then that are the two. These are two. This is modern day history. It's history in the
Yeah.
making.
Well, now we're living the history.
We are.
We're up to the point now, and I guess we better be on our best behavior because the history books are watching.
Yeah.
They sure are.
Yeah. Then when you guys got Wi-Fi, I remember that was another big. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
what?
Internet
Really?
jukebox. I mean, before
Yeah.
Yeah.
the internet jukebox, there was a CD jukebox that had
Which I
100
did
CDs.
love. That was cool. Except
Oh,
there
yeah.
was a few.
Oh, and the people get all wistful about that one as well. It's just like, oh, that jukebox was just the best. Dude, it was a fucking 100 CDs.
yeah.
And that's all you get.
That's
was
it.
cool.
It's 100
itself.
CDs, and that's probably 37 songs that you actually want to listen to.
For you guys
Right.
that were here all the time, if you worked here, I'm sure that would get annoying.
Oh, my
Yeah.
God.
Oh.
It was annoying that there was Iggy and the Stooges, but it wasn't in there. And every time I would just forget. I would put money in and
You know,
try to go put on some Iggy and the
Beatles.
Stooges.
The Beatles one wouldn't work. So
Yeah.
all these guys
Yep.
are trying to play Beatles songs, and well, you can't.
No, that one doesn't spin. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The
So
the
there's-
Forrest Gump soundtrack.
Well, that's actually I was gonna say this building's the Forrest Gump of this town because it's been there for all of the historical things. Every town
Well,
needs
it is special.
it needs a watering hole. Yeah, every town needs a watering hole. Forrest Gump more of a watering head.
Yeah.
So it's been through all of these changes and all these historical things. It's been here.
Yeah.
It's an important part of this town. It's
It
a
sure
pillar
is.
of this community.
It sure is. It's right on our one intersection with the blinking red light, and it's our only traffic signal in town.
Yeah.
It just keeps on blinking on, and
Do you
the
like
jug
that,
keeps
though?
on standing.
Do you like that? Like when we talk about it was a bustling military town. If something else happened, maybe if they had opened a factory or something, it would have grown.
Are you asking would it be better if it was still a bustling town?
Yeah, or do you like it that it's a quiet
Of
little
course.
town?
Well, I mean,
I think we'd all have a lot more money.
Yeah, it would be a lot better from a business standpoint. I mean,
absolutely,
we are who we are here. We know. I mean, like the kind of the running line here is that we're kind of the end of the earth.
Yeah,
I mean,
we're
you
the
look
last
across the
spot
river.
until...
You look across the river, and it's the start of the GTA, which is about 9 million people. Mm-hmm. And how do you get those people to come here? Well, the short answer is they don't.
Yeah.
We got who we got, and we are who we are, and this place is kind of the bar on the end of the earth. And you don't end up in Youngstown. You definitely meant to come here if you ended up here.
Well, unless you're Niall.
Well, that's your Niall, yeah. An Irishman, but he lives across the street, so he, he got stuck with us just as much as we got stuck with him.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
By circumstance or friends.
Circumstantial
there's people who don't want it to get hustling and bustling again.
Yeah,
they
they
want to be here to escape that shit.
That was one of Ed's critiques of the powers that be in Youngstown, is that they wanted to turn this place in the world's biggest cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
They want to keep it nice and sleepy and quiet. And anytime there was any fun going on in the place, they wanted to stamp it out as quickly as possible because it's really, really ruining our quiet time.
Well,
how dare you try to have some fun?
I want to have fun, but I don't want to open a Fuddruckers. I want to have authentic fun.
If you ever read the Sentinel back in the day, the week after the regatta.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. It was just like, you couldn't stop laughing. Like, there would be like,
the police blotter is special, right?
84-year-old woman reports finding condom in front yard.
Why would you report that?
Investigation ongoing.
It's like, what? That's information? That's I think people had sex in my front yard. All these drunk people were in town.
Well, at least they use protection.
Two anonymous Canadians suspected of copulating in the front yard of the mayor's house.
Of the mayor's house.
That's pretty great. That's fun.
Samples collected and are off in the crime lab to analyze.
Yeah.
All right, you want to make a sleepy little cul-de-sac, we're going to bang on your lawn.
Yeah.
But, the regatta was one of those things that they caught lightning in a bottle. I mean, the organizers of that, Don Finkel going back to 1974 with the Lover Regatta, come the 90s when they would have about 500 boats come from all corners of the lake.
That was the big event of the year.
It was the event of the century. It was so much fun. I mean, it was listed on the Rolling Stone best 5 annual parties of the year.
Yeah,
because this
it was
place
really incredible.
was just insane. I mean, then the after party for the regatta would happen right here. And they would go until 3 o'clock in the morning, and everybody would retreat back to their tents, and people were camping and staying on their boats. I mean, when you think about 500 people with you want to average 5 people per boat.
Yeah.
You do the math, and then all the people that just come for this was
it was rocking.
Insane.
Yeah.
The whole town itself was just a festival.
This year,
it really was.
This year they have, I think, I was talking to one of the organizers of what is now called the Can-Am Regatta.
Right.
They had somewhere around 80 boats registered. Last year they ended up with 99 boats. And the party was pretty tame, and they all basically stay down there because the party down there is coming into its own. It's really great. It's more of a sailing oriented event now because before the party just took over, and the sailing kind of took a back seat. It was all volunteers. It was really, really kind of unwieldy, and they really kind of wanted to bring it back and reorganize and make it more of a sailing oriented event. And they've done a great job doing it. The racing there has been top notch. But it's going to take another little bit to kind of stoke the fire of the party again, and I think this place is going to be a really big part of it.
Is that worth it from a business standpoint to have one event that is just insanity, and just kind of stockpile all the cash
Well,
from that,
it
and then
certainly didn't
survive
hurt
for the sleepy rest of the year.
Yeah,
Wow.
it certainly didn't hurt before, and it was a real lively event. It was incredible. I mean, it was definitely a thing that you could kind of hang your hat on every single year. But now it's really turned more into a sailing event. It's kind of the party's kind of calmed down a little bit to the point where, you know, they mostly stay down there. They party down there until 11 o'clock, where they have the band down there, and then they'll make their way up. But you know, you're talking about a very small fraction of people are going to make their way up.
Exactly.
You know, the droves don't descend on the town like they did back in the day.
Right. I mean, Ed used to tell me that like through the 80s especially, he said that the party was so big that just off Regatta weekend, he could almost make it the entire year.
Yeah.
Like, which is, I mean, that's a fucking party.
It's
not really
obnoxious,
the case
but
anymore.
just stomach it because it'll, you know.
Well,
Right.
you know what? That is not something that you complain about, because
No.
Yeah.
you make your nut for the year. You work here. It doesn't matter if they end up just, you know, lining up and kicking you in the balls.
Right.
You know, every single one of them. You know, I'll take it because that's
take
my
it.
year right there.
That's my year. Yeah. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
really.
And,
you guys
another-
have sex
give me another
wherever you
shot.
want.
You know, and,
Right.
and
the
you know,
lawn.
you really do got to give it to Ed, because he made sure the party was memorable for every one of those people. And
Absolutely.
when they come into town, they just glow about the regatta years down here at the Stone Jug, because you know the party was great down below, but after they would pull the plug down below, and they would do so around 9 o'clock down there before,
Right.
and
This
then
was
they'd
the spot.
Then,
make their way up here and just party their faces off,
And they would just rage and
Yeah.
rage.
You know, you want to hear stories about the level regatta. You just talk to Ed Wojcik, and he has got them.
we got to get him on, definitely.
Yeah, we'll
He's-
definitely have him on at some point. Dude, in 1996, I was out in Colorado, and I'm in line at a 7-Eleven, right? And, you know, I'm going up to the counter, and there's 5 or 6 people in line. And I look up, and the guy in front of me is wearing a Youngstown Level Regatta shirt.
Wow.
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, so I tap him on the shoulder. I'm like, excuse me. I'm like, have you been there? And he's like, what? I'm like, there. Have you been there to the Youngstown Level Regatta? And he's like, you know the Youngstown Level Regatta? I go, I'm from Youngstown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, shut the fuck up. I'm like, I swear to God. I'm like, I'm from Youngstown. Like, I
Yeah.
grew up there my whole life. And he's like, holy shit, what a small world. He's like, yeah. He's like, I've been going there every year for the last 10 years. He's like, it's like the best. He's like, it's the best sailing party like that there is anywhere. He's like, we always go every year. We don't miss it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Well, I
So
mean,
that's
kind-
what a great
kind-
party
kind of
was.
a-
People
kind
from
of a-
Colorado are fucking coming here just for
Yeah.
that.
Kind of a funny similar story. I was, you know, I worked on a ski resort in Park City, Utah. And you know, I mean, especially when you're an employee of the mountain, you sit on the chairlift, and you're usually riding a single, and you jump on a chairlift with somebody. And I sit down, and you know, always polite. Hey, how you guys doing? Where are you guys from? And the guy's like, oh, I'm from Sodus, New York. I'm like, oh, cool. I'm from Youngstown, New York. He's like, oh, you ever go to the Stone Jug? Get the fuck out of here, man.
Wow.
You know, that's the home base.
Yeah.
And you know, he talks about the regatta, talks about all the other stuff, and it's just like, it's one of those things that it's amazing to think about this little tiny town of 1900 people up here at the end of the earth, like we said.
Well,
And,
it's got a place that has character that sticks with people.
yeah,
It's
and it
memorable.
sure does.
They have
And especially you're a stone's throw from Niagara Falls. You know, you're the headquarters of one of the great sailing regattas on the Great Lakes, and you know, people know and people take notice, and you know, people remember it, and they hold on to it, and you know, when they get to talk about it, they just light up. And it was crazy that they met somebody from Youngstown, New York, because
Right.
they had a real good time there.
They had
Yeah.
a real good time. Most of them don't actually remember it, so they
Yeah.
kind of just make it up in their own head. But they know that it was fun.
They have a.
Well,
they have
it's a point on the map, and that was one that they won't forget. They might not remember what happened there, but they won't forget that. Put the pin in it.
That's right, exactly.
That's beautiful, man. All right. Well, thank you for listening. Thank you for hanging out and giving us a lesson.
Yeah, we really appreciate it, Pete. You know.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me, guys. It was a blast.
You're our
And-
resident
Yeah, we'll do it
historian.
again.
a resident historian.
Every time we
Yeah.
need to know something, we're gonna get you on.
Yeah, we're gonna
Yeah.
have you back on the show every time we have a history question.
Oh yeah, well, you know where to find me.
Yeah, I sure do, bud.
All right. Next time you gotta explain to me who this Abe Lincoln bastard was. I still don't get it.
Well,
So start taking notes.
Yeah.
I'll look him up.
What does he have to do with the log?
He's probably got a Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
I'll read it and I'll just regurgitate all that shit.
Mr.
Right
Fancy
back on
Pants, that's over my head.
It's
All
perfect.
right. Yeah, so everybody come down to the Jug. All right, it's a historical place. There's a culture here it's original, and it sticks with people all the way to Utah and Colorado, all the way on top of the snowy mountains.
That's right.
Keep listening. Captain's Jug of Thoughts. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
You've been listening to the Captain's Jug of Thoughts podcast. A production of
Thermopolis
Media.